Welcome to Contractor Cuts, where we cover the good, the bad, and the ugly of growing a successful contracting company.
All right, let's do this. Welcome back to Contractor Cuts. My name is Clark Turner.
And I'm James McConnell.
Good job.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening this week. So,
all I could keep hearing was, we're back.
And we're back.
We're back.
Today we're talking red flags versus green flags, navigating clients with purpose. Mm-hmm. Such a great title. I wrote it myself.
So good.
So today we are listing out, so backing up, when we were talking about clients, how to navigate them, and something that we talk about often when coaching other contractors is we often see false red flags. We see things that clients do and like, oh, I'm out. I don't want to work with this person. And you almost get this, and I've seen this with project managers internally in our company, this negative mindset before we even started that this person's going to be an absolute Karen. I don't like, I don't know.
I'm not familiar with the term.
Okay. Karen, someone similar to the way you act on the norm. Right. So, but you get this sour attitude about these customers because they're doing certain things that are potential red flags, and it changes the whole attitude and the mindset of the job. And so what we want to do is identify, what is actually a red flag? And and if it's a red flag, let's either lay it out up front or say no to the customer. Like, we don't need this job. I'd rather not take a job than take a job and lose on it. And also, what are the green flags? And we're also going to talk today about false green flags, right? What sounds like, oh, that's awesome, perfect client, and then all of a sudden, because that flag was being raised, it was actually should have been identified as a red flag. So that's a little confusing, but just follow our conversation today on it.
And I think there's a distinction. You kind of went into this, but it's like a red flag and a green flag. It's kind of taken out of context when we use it, because red flag, green flag, it doesn't mean that there's not questions that need to be asked and things that need to be delved into. It's just, hey, this is a red flag because my history says that this creates problems. Yep. And that's all it is. Yeah. And so, throwing the baby out the bathwater, it's you're gonna lose out on some great opportunities because it's requiring more of you and calling you out. Yep.
Well, and we've talked about the client engagement agreement that if you're in the coaching program, you get a copy of, and we walk you through making it your own. In the client engagement agreement, we have listed out every expectation they should have of us and of what we have from them. And that came from the red flags we saw, whether it was before or during, like, hey, it seems like customers keep tripping us up on this one thing, so let's write out the expectation ahead of time and talk about it before we even start. Yeah. Right. And so that allows you to kind of ignore some false red flags because, hey, I'm going to cover that stuff. I'm going to handle this before we even get started. And it also allows you as a company to say yes to more clients. Where if I can handle the most difficult client that had a lot of questions, a lot of things a lot of requirements, if I can handle them, then I can handle anybody. And most contractors don't want that client. For me, I'm like, I want them because no one else is going to take them, and we can handle it with the processes and the ways that we handle our jobs and do what we say we're going to do. That client's not going to be a problem for us. Yeah. So let's talk through some false red flags, things that most contractors see and like, oh, this is scary. I don't want to be with this client. First one that actually I think you came up with, a client that asks a lot of questions. Mm-hmm. That is, I give them, hey, this is the estimate. Here's what's going on. I kind of talk them through it, and then they come back with an email the next day that's 3 pages long with what about this and how about this and did you account for this and did you do this? Why would you say that's a false red flag as opposed to this person's going to be a problem?
I think it's a false red flag because it's not a bad thing to have a client that is a detail-oriented person. Hmm. There's a lot more heavy lifting on the front end. And that's honestly, it's like accountability for you. And I think we run away from it because of the accountability. It's like, oh, this person is going to be on my butt. They're going to be crossing all my T's, dotting all my I's. Yeah. And I don't work that way. And to a certain degree, it's like, you can get to a point, but this is more of like a theoretical discussion of why is that a red flag for
Yeah.
you? Well, I don't want to have to answer all those questions. Well, maybe you need to look at your
Why?
process.
Yeah.
Like, why do they have so many questions?
Yeah.
And if 2 of their pages of questions are clearly listed in your scope, okay, doesn't mean it's dead. Have that conversation.
Yeah.
Maybe they've never done this before.
Yep.
Maybe they don't even know. Maybe they didn't read the scope because they don't think that that's how it's supposed to go. I don't know.
Yep.
That would be silly. But I'm just trying to give an example
Yeah.
that it might be cleared up by, hey, all of that is in the scope. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Like, I was just looking at the bottom line price. You're right. I should have blah, blah, blah. I've got all this stuff going on. Okay.
Yeah.
It was like a one-time thing. If that's a consistent thing that every email you send is responded to with a list of questions that you've already answered or that are clearly listed in the scope of work or the contract that you guys have signed and gone through,
Yeah.
then, that might be an issue. But it's not, we need to just probably plan for this job to go sideways because they ask a lot of questions.
Well, and asking a lot of questions means you're probably doing a poor job at answering questions before it hits their client, right?
Yeah.
So most contractors are flying by the seat of their pants, figuring it out. I've done this for 10 years. I've done this for 20 years. So just trust me, it's going to work
Or
out.
here's a good example. You haven't explained, hey, this part of the estimation process is high level. So I'm not going to give you, this is the square footage of tile that we're looking at. The way it's broken out is I'm doing your backsplash, I'm doing your bathroom floor, I'm doing the tile surround in the primary bathroom, I'm doing the tile surround this, and there's all these numbers. Mm-hmm. I don't have square footages for all of those. I'm just looking at pictures. I have general ideas, but maybe part of your process isn't putting those numbers in. That's fine. If the client knows that. But if their questions are, what's the square footage? This is the grout I want to use. This
Which
is
tile
the
do I have
tile
to
I
get?
want to use. Yeah. What do you guys have a catalog?
Here's the hardwoods that I want. Great.
You
Great.
haven't told them your process, and they are now trying to drive the car,
Yep.
and that's the problem.
Yeah. Well, if you are an unregulated with not a lot of the process is just kind of in my brain how I do things, and you can't explain it. You can't lay out what's going to be coming, what's to be expected. Some customers are fine with that because that's how their brain works too. They're like, okay, just well, I'm fine with having an incomplete circle in my brain on this because I can just put it on the shelf and pull it out when we talk again.
Yeah. Until
we get started. Now, other customers, I have to have a total understanding before I can even make the next step towards working together. And those are the ones that feel like this person's going to be a problem. But it's because I haven't communicated most of the time. It's because I didn't give them the right information. I haven't laid out what's next. I've sent them an estimate saying, hey, here's the estimate. I didn't say what's happening next. Like you said, the estimating process is a whittling down to get to the final number where we have a solid quote at the end of this. Today is not that day. Today, you're not going to have that finalized number. I'm trying to grasp everything. And if they understand that, then they're usually pretty cool with that, as opposed to asking all these questions about paint color. And, my brother-in-law says I should use eggshell, but I'm thinking satin. Mm-hmm. That's not first estimate conversation. And let me explain when we cover that stuff. And if they have an expectation of when we're going to answer those questions, then they're fine with it. Mm-hmm. It's more like, well, I know all of these things have to be answered before we go forward, so I'm just going to keep asking and keep pepper spraying you with everything that comes into my head.
Yeah.
So I think that's it. I think going into the second false red flag, which is similar to this, is high detail requirements. And that's kind of going into what we're talking about of this phase of my estimate. We do 3 estimates: the desk estimate, the on-site revisions, and then the finalized. There might be 4 or 5 depending on the size of the project, but explaining to them what the purpose of each estimating phase is, what we're going to be doing, when the additional detail comes in. Let's talk about a designer. Do you have one? There's a heavy level of design, and you don't want me picking out your paint colors. That whole conversation. But when someone's coming in requiring high detail of you, it's a huge positive for me, because for me, I want every bit of detail on this estimate laid out. When people don't care about the details, that's actually the red flag. When they're like, hey, here's an estimate. I give them an estimate. They look at the bottom dollar on it, and they say, great, that sounds good. They're assuming everything that we talked about on site is on that estimate.
it's a false green flag.
It's a false green flag. We'll talk about that next. But when I give them an estimate that says, hey, right here, I don't understand, You said paint main floor. Does that include the walls and ceiling and trim, or is that just walls?
Or is that just the floor?
Is that just the main floor? But again, I want that detail on my estimate. If I'm not putting it in there, I love that they're catching that stuff because I want to make sure their expectations of what we're doing is exactly what we're doing.
And the cool thing, promoting the software, if I could,
please.
If you have these templates, you can pre-put all that stuff in there and do TBD. So my full interior paint line is color TBD, sheen TBD, accurate square footage TBD, details TBD. What are we doing? Do you have dental molding? Do you have judges paneling?
Promar 200 is a standard or whatever paint level that you're going to use. So it's already on there. So
hey, in your paint line item, it says quarter round, but we don't have quarter round. Like, those are little details that you need to be careful of. If you're putting it in your quote, it's part of your pre-built line items. But, like, those are the types of details that you can get ahead of.
Yeah.
Once you have these pre-built line items and you can go through, okay, we're not doing quarter round, you take that out.
Where if you're typing it up in Excel, it's going to take you 3 hours to put that level of detail. If you're using the job templates in ProStruct, 5 minutes you got it built, and then I'm going to edit for 10 minutes, and it's good to go.
Yeah.
So I think that's right on. It's not difficult to get that level of detail. You just got to be proactive in making sure that your lines are built the way, your presets are built the way you want them, to where then I can almost answer. What I've loved that you've done with your presets, not to rabbit trail on this, but
go ahead.
What you've done that you're really good at, and I'm proud of you.
Oh, wow.
is you build out delete, all caps on the top, delete, and questions for your project manager that's going to go on site, because you're not going on site. You're building the desk estimate, talking with the customer, and then sending it to your project manager to go on site to refine the estimate. You put questions on there for the PM to find out. So this, even though it's in writing on the estimate, these are unanswered questions. Look at this. Check on this. Is this a load-bearing wall? Do we need this? Put those questions pre-filled in your line items to where if I'm going through even if I miss it and I'm sitting with my customer, they're like, hey, what's this question on the quote? Mm-hmm. Oh, that's where a variable on the pricing is. We don't know if that's load-bearing till we open the wall up. I don't think it is. Let me explain why, but I want to keep that on here because that might be a change order if we open up that wall. Right? It helps understand all those details that are just, let's go ahead and put that on the quote. So I think you can use those line items and descriptions to give that detail that you can edit as you're building your estimate. All right. Another false red flag, deadline goals. For me, that's a false red flag because when I hear someone say, hey, I got to get this done by April 1st, well, that's actually what's on your list. Why is that a false red flag for you? Let me hear your side of it.
I like when people have goals. Yeah. It's when there's not we're good whenever, just, let's just get it started. Yeah. It's kind of this amorphous blob that you can't really work back from. And for me, I'm always going to think, I'm going to work this forward and then find the date. Yeah. When somebody can give me a date, doesn't change how I'm going to approach it. I'm still going to go, great. I love having a date. Let me see if that works. It's probably going to take me a couple weeks to actually map out if that's realistic. Yeah. Because I'm not just going to sit down and say, yeah, my guy can do that then, and then right after that, someone will do this. I need to know when my sheetrock guy is going to be available. I'm not just going to speak for him. I'm actually going to, unless that's a guy that's on your payroll, then great. Yeah. You'll know when he's available. None of my guys are on payroll. So I'm looking at him saying, we have to connect with all of these people to see what their calendar looks like. And if it's not going to fit, then I might need to find somebody else. But I don't want to just be, I don't want to be beholden to the timeline so that I have to work with random people that I don't know.
Well, I also think that why it's a false flag and why it's almost a green flag for us is one of the big values that we bring as contractors is game planning, and we bring a Gantt chart before the job starts. Yeah. And so James is filling out with the PMs exactly what trade is going to be in the house on what day. So it might be an 8-month project, and I can say, hey, just so you know, our estimated completion date is August 13th. And the customer's like, whoa, that's a very specific date. So yeah, I mean, it's not going to end there. It might come up a couple days. It might go back a couple days. We're going to have change orders. We might have stuff that comes off the quote, things that will affect it. But right now, if everything runs smoothly, August 13th is the day that I plan on being done with this job.
Yeah.
Right. And so us planning that out allows the customer to see, okay, this is everything. And also can say, listen, let me show you what happens if my sheetrock goes over 2 days.
Yes.
Because if that happens, then this happens, then this happens. Going over 2 days on sheetrock might end up pushing us a week and a half. And let me show you how that happens. Let me explain that to you. So if August 18th, 8 months out, is going to be a drop dead date for you, we have zero variables that can happen on this job and still hit that date. So let's talk about timeline. Maybe we chopped it. You just did this with the client last week. This job that you have, we can't get done by then. What if we chop it into 2 jobs? We have the front end job will be done. You can have your graduation party. You can have your house back because this part will be completed. And then the second part, phase 2 will happen, and we'll start after that party. But I feel comfortable committing to this front end being done by April 1st for you. But it's going to cost some extra money because I have to have my painters out there twice instead of once. But again, it's not going to be big, huge change orders. But let's break this into 2 jobs and see what that looks like for you.
And here's like the really positive side. Someone that has a date in mind is really motivated. That's a very hot lead.
Yep.
They are gonna get this job done, hopefully by this date, by somebody. They're not kicking tires. They've got the money ready to go. They want to get this project done. That's positive. That's great. I want a motivated person that when I'm like, great, we can slot that in here, but we need a lot of decisions made. Great, we're on board. They like that too. So it's a good, if you're able to back it up and you actually put thoughtful consideration into your timelines, you don't need to be afraid of that conversation. They love, if you come back with them and say, hey, your April timeline for me is not going to work. I've got this stuff going on. I'm not just going to bring random people out to your job site. So if it's going to be me, the best timeline I can give you is going to be the August or whatever. And that kind of builds credibility for you as a contractor.
Yeah.
When they're like, oh, this guy actually thought through it, and he's not telling me what I want to hear. He's telling me what is possible. But like you said, I always clarify that with them, not in so many words, but this is what I'm not fluffing this for you. This is what I think is a reasonable timeline. But the changes that happen throughout the course of a construction project are always cascading. Because the sheetrock guy can't get done, which means the painter can't come in, which means we can't do the flooring, which means we can't trim everything out at the same time. So everything moves back, and then if one guy has something ahead of that schedule, that might push us even further, especially if he's already done work. I can't just bring this other person in. To fix it, to do his job, like especially if it's a trade like electrician, plumber, or HVAC. We can't split that up. That's a big
Once
no-no.
you start, you got to finish with the same guy usually. So I think that also, we have another false red flag, but I think that goes into one of the true red flags that we should talk about, which is a real red flag along with deadline goals is unmovable deadlines, which is also like requirements that can't allow variables. So one of the real red flags is for us when there's an unmovable deadline. This addition has to be done by October 1st because I'm being induced into having a baby October 2nd. And I look at and I say, there's no way we could, like, maybe I can get it done by October 1st. Well, let's go ahead and get it done.
We're easy.
Yeah, I'm sure if you got to clean up once the baby, we can just take a week and then y'all can come back and get it.
If we could at least...
That is a huge red flag for me, along with the requirements that can't allow variables. So a good example of that is an investor that you're working with, and they say, hey, listen, this bid that you gave me is $100,000 to do everything we need to do. That's great. I'm too far into this house already, but you're the cheapest out of everybody, which is already a flag. You're the cheapest out of everybody, but $100,000 gets all this done. I'm happy, but just so you know, I'm making about $5,000 on this flip because I messed up.
I made some bad decisions, and I'd like for you to cover them.
I've got like. That's exactly what it is. I can't go $1 over $100,000 on this.
I won't recover from this financially.
But when they're like, I've got $10,000 I'm making on this flip, 100 grand is going to you getting it done, but I need to get out of this house. For me, that's a flag saying there's no variables here to where if you were making 80 grand on this flip, then if termites show up and we have to spend extra money on doing some stuff, you've got the buffer in there for it. If there's no buffer, if you're doing a loan, like a VA loan, and there's not a single dollar out of your pocket you can put into this, and that loan is maxed out at a certain number, and we've spent that entire budget and you can't get your budget lower than that. Like if the VA loan is $100,000, I want to be at $85,000 to $90,000 on my bid, so I've got some buffer, some extra space, some cushion for change orders for whatever comes up. But if we're maxed out on your total budget and there's no additional moving room, that's a recipe for disaster. I open a wall up, there's termites in the wall. Who's paying for this now? Yeah, because I'm halfway through the job and I'm pot committed at this point.
You've put us in a position to where, or we've both put us in this position because you asked me to do it and I've agreed.
Yeah.
But I have to be perfect, and nothing out of my control can go awry.
Yeah. Yeah.
For this to be successful for you, and if anything does go wrong, you're not going to use me again, and you're going to be a pain in my side for the entire project. Yes. Because your money, your livelihood is attached to me executing something that's not going to be executed.
Yeah. I think using those during your client engagement agreement meetings, the two things, like if something were to go wrong here, I care more about quality and giving you a good product than hitting a timeline. And so if I've got to pull guys for a week to fix something that I didn't like in the job, and we go a week over, 2 weeks over, 3 weeks over, something crazy happens, we get a stop order from the city, what's that going to affect for you? Well, I need to know if we go over. I'm not budgeting for that. I'm not helping for that, but I need to know, is that going to affect anything for you? Number two, if we open up the wall and there's termites, if we get into it and the city requires something additional that's going to cost 10 grand extra, what are we going to do in the job? Yeah. Like, is that doable? Is there space for that? I'm hoping for no change orders. My goal is 0 change orders on a job, but I don't know the unforeseen stuff that could happen.
This is probably kind of a rabbit trail, but they're used to, I'm not going to use the name because it's like an organization, but like there's an organization that we used to get a lot of leads from, not because we were marketing towards them, but because it was just, we just ended up getting a lot of these leads. They would always ask me, if you finish, can we set up some type of thing to where if you finish beyond your deadline that you pay me per whatever, like we're paying them if we go over time.
Yeah.
And I've used this conversation several times since then and it's been mostly well received and understood. I've never worked with those people though, because they'll find people that agree to it.
Yeah.
But I say, I understand you wanting me to be financially invested in the timeline. But I already am financially invested in the timeline. If I can finish this quicker, I'm going to make more money. If it takes me longer, I'm going to lose money. So you, at the end of this, have an asset that you can sell. So your investment is a gamble. It's a risk by its nature. Mine is not, nor will I ever allow it to be, because I'm going to make sure that we're going to make our money, because it's a service. This isn't. We're not, if you want to cut me in on the percentage of that job, of like what you get at the end, let's talk about that. But I'm not going to put my money up against a timeline that I actually don't have full control over.
Yeah.
That's silly.
My line on it of, if you're hiring Clark to put paint on the wall, then I can guarantee that. Mm-hmm. You're hiring Clark to bring in the paint crew that I know, that I've used, that is great, that will show up and put paint on the wall. If something happens to my paint crew on the way there and they get a flat tire, they get pulled over and someone gets arrested, something happens.
The paint police
show up. I can't control that. And so if I have to hit your timeline, you want me to go to Home Depot and pick up a crew off the side of the road, or do you want me to wait a week to get that crew back out there to make sure we do a really good job? Do you care about quality or hitting a timeline? Because if you don't care about quality, that's fine. I'm going to put that in writing that you don't. I'm going to use the guy from Home Depot parking lot to paint this house because I have to get it done this week. And so for me, I would rather take an extra second to get the right crew out there, or I see someone doing something they shouldn't, I'm going to pull them out and replace them. That's going to take some time. But like you were saying in the beginning, James, I don't get paid more for being here for 3 weeks longer. Unless you want to pay me daily and we go to that type of rate, then we can talk about going beyond. But I have 2 more jobs I got to start right when this is done.
Yeah.
And if I'm still here, I'm hurting financially because I'm not starting the next, and I can't invoice you anymore for being here. So I am being penalized going over the timeline financially, strongly. And my other question is, if I finish a week early, are you going to pay me a bonus?
Yeah.
Like, are you? That doesn't seem fair either.
Yeah.
Because if you want to do that, then my timeline's now, instead of 8 months, it's going to be 12 months.
Yeah.
And you're going to give me a bonus.
Asking me now to fluff
my numbers.
Everything. So every conversation I have with you now is going to have this secret, unspoken context of, I'm fluffing this as much as I reasonably can because I don't want to be on the hook for money.
Yeah, I need 3 weeks to paint this bathroom.
That seems excessive.
Well,
we have a weird agreement.
Yeah. All right. The other false red flag that we wrote down is longer dating period to check you out. When you're a client and you've got the first engagement, they start checking you out. They want to look. They want to come and do. They want to references. All that's normal. I want references. I want to sit down. I want to understand. I want to look at your Facebook. I want to look at your Instagram. Check you out. Make sure you're good.
And side note, those people are the people that are probably going to review you without you asking.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is like great. Like how you have to like track down people. Like, hey, we just finished. You were super happy. Can you give us a review? Hey, 3 weeks later, just checking in. Hope everything's good. You mind giving us a review?
Yep.
But the people that are asking, I want to talk with references. I want to see some pictures. I value
reviews.
I value that.
I'm going to give a review.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it's like, oh, this person will never commit. Like they just keep dragging their feet. And I've seen guys internally kind of, the more that they get that resistance, the more that they're kind of putting that customer on a back burner. And I'm like, no, this is them. This is how we land them. This is the time to go. Just because they want to do due diligence on you is almost more of proof that they're going to use you as opposed to a challenge to get started with them. Mm-hmm. And so double down on that. But then it also goes into one of our negatives, which is, if they drag their feet too long, I'm going to call it out. I'm going to say to them and sit down with the customer and be like, hey, listen, absolutely. If you want to come walk another job site with me and talk to another customer, we can do that. I feel like there's an unanswered question in your head. Help me understand that because I want to get those questions answered. What makes you nervous to move forward with us?
Did you read a review that you didn't like? Yes. Can I shed light on that review?
Yes. And so instead of allowing them to hunt for 3 weeks to figure out the answer to what the question's in their head, call them out on it and bring it up and say, listen, I'm not scared of the hard conversation. Like, I've had a negative review, and I'll talk about it, and I'll tell you exactly what I did wrong and what the customer did wrong. Mm-hmm. Like, that's what this client engagement agreement came from, is I made mistakes on that job, and I'll tell you what I've learned from that. I can't promise you I'm not going to make mistakes. What I can promise you is that I'm going to be here until the mistakes are fixed.
Actually, I can promise you I'm going to make mistakes. The question is, can I fix it quick enough before you know there's a mistake?
Yeah, or I'm going to stand behind it. You call me and something messed up, I'm going to be out here, and I'm going to be out here every single day until it gets right. So I want, a lot of times when they're dragging their feet, it's I read that they screwed this client. Like, I want to talk to people. I really like their quote. I really like the guys I'm working with, but this is really 1-star reviews stuck in my. Let's talk about it. Put it on the table. So again, that's not a red flag to me. That to me, I understand you've probably been burnt by a contractor. The experience that you had 10 years ago doing your basement, you were ready to pick us. You read a review, and it's confirmed the experience you had last time with another GC is going to happen again this time, and that's your concern. So let's talk about it. And let me walk you through it. True red flags for us. Those are all kind of the false ones. True red flags. The third time I have to explain the same thing to a customer. When I have to say the same conversation for a third time, to me it's like, oh no, this person isn't listening. This person doesn't have reason. They are just trying to get something from me, right? We can go through probably a long list of customers that we can identify that we've worked with.
That'll be fun. Let's do it.
Let's do it. We'll send this to them. Now, but going through and saying, yes, I understand that you don't want to pay that extra money, but that wasn't part of the original quote. So if you want to move forward with us, we need to add the $2,000 onto this quote because I didn't realize you wanted X, Y, and Z. Okay, great. And then I talked to them again. But can we just not pay this? Like, that was kind of what we talked about. Well, remember, we talked about a second time. I'm saying if they ask a third time about that line item, I don't want to work with that person because they're not reasonable. They don't understand, or they're not listening. They have an agenda. And so for me, that's a red flag if I'm saying something for the third time to them. Another true red flag for us is negotiating the price without reasoning. Speak on that one because that was one that you had brought up.
All right. Well, let's role play it.
Okay, great.
So we just left contract.
Who am I?
You're the client.
Female or male?
No, you're me.
I'm James.
Yes, you're me.
Hey, guys.
Great. Shoot.
Hi, how's it going?
And I'll be the client.
Okay.
Here's the context. We just finished our CEA.
Okay.
I signed the contract.
Yes.
We're ready to go.
James, I'm excited getting started with you.
No. You're me.
Okay. What's your client name?
Peter. No, Chim Richards.
Chim Richards.
Yeah.
Chim, I'm excited you came and did this meeting with us. I think your kitchen's going to be beautiful. I'm excited to get started with you.
You have amazing eyes.
Thank you. I'm a little short for my
I've noticed.
for my age.
But you seem tall. You seem tall of heart.
I'm not. This is fun being you. All right. So, Chim,
Yes.
any other questions before we get rolling?
Yes. Would you take 10% off of your total?
I can't. What line item are you talking about? What
I
part?
just feel as though this is a good sized project. It's going to be a beautiful finish, some type of crown jewel for your company. I think it might be the largest job you guys have ever done, so I feel like it would be a good show of partnership to give me 10% off.
Well, Chim, if I had 10% to just chop off of this job, I'd be ripping you off sitting here with what we just signed. So I don't have that type of margin in my numbers. I can't just chop dollars off because every dollar that I have on here is already spent to what I need to make the product that me and you discussed a reality.
So
5%.
are we doing this?
Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, it's when people don't have a reason for lowering your dollar.
That's a real conversation.
That's a real conversation. What he just had is a customer that we won't name, but we both laughed about when we brought the name because that's literally he signed the document and immediately asked for 10% off a 6-figure job. What?
Yeah, there's nothing to...
I think part of that too, negotiating price without reason, is like, hey, I got another guy that'll do that paint for $2,000. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm at $4,000, and this is like, how do you get there? I don't mind you trying to push back on dollars when, a great example of not a red flag negotiating price is, hey, Clark, I'm looking at the estimate. It looks like the flooring budget that you have is $10 a square foot. And I did these hardwoods probably 8 years ago, and it was like $5 a square foot. Why is it so much higher? Like, help me understand the variance. If a customer comes at me like that, I can explain the per square footage pricing, how we came up with it, what's included in it, how many square feet they have, how we're budgeting for that. That's fine. And if we want to talk per square footage, we want to lower the quality of the material we're using, you don't want to do this, let's go to LVP instead of wood. Like, we can have those conversations. But when it's just hey, can you knock $5,000 off? Hey, can you do this?
This price seems high.
Oh, interesting. I thought it seemed low.
Well, that's not what I think.
Wow. So that's that's one of our red flags: negotiating price without reason, without unforeseen. When I give a round number and they start negotiating that before I've been on site, this isn't going to go well. All right, so let's get into the green flags. This is something that we thought would be good ender on this podcast is the false green flags. Things that guys see as red flag or as green flags, like, oh, this client's going to be great, but actually you should have a little more caution when entering when this stuff's happening. So when a customer doesn't care about the details, right? You give them a quote, they look at it like, hey, looks good. Can y'all get rolling? For me, or for the average contractor, it's like, heck yeah, we're ready to go.
Yeah, money's not a problem. This looks fine. Let's go.
Just get it done. Yeah. Front end, that's a problem because they don't know what exactly they're guaranteed that we're doing. I might have walked the job with you, and we walked it as our customer, and I'm like taking notes, writing things down, and you're like, hey, also it need a new roof. And then we keep talking. I forgot to write that down. I didn't know that you needed a new roof. I missed it when you said it. I give you a quote back. You don't read the quote. You're not into the details. You're not caring about it. You just see the bottom dollar. In your head, we're doing a roof because we talked about it.
Yeah.
In my head, I didn't put it on the quote. We're not budgeting for it, and it's not there. So you're not getting a roof. But because you as a customer are ready to just sign it and go and let's go, that price looks good, we talked through what we talked about, I need you as a customer to dive into the details of this quote. And if it's not on here, you're not getting it.
Yeah.
Right? So for me, I'm pumping the brakes when someone's ready to go that fast. And also with change orders, money's not a problem, just get it done. Kind of you said that on the front end, but I think that also happens a lot mid-job of like, hey, the tile you selected wasn't there. What if we do this? Also, I was thinking about doing this. Yeah, that's fine. Just get it done. Well, I want to tell you got a $5,000 change order, but you're not even, that's fine. Just get it done. Contractors get stuck in that all the time, and there's miscommunication about who's paying what at the end of the
We'll get it figured out.
Yeah, we're not going to get it figured out later. We're going to figure it out today before we move forward with anything. And so my job as a contractor is to not just take the blank check that he's giving me, because nobody is going to sign that blank check. They're making you think, just get it done. But at the end of the job, you're not getting paid for that stuff.
Yeah.
So you need to have caution when they're just blank checking you on stuff like that. Another false green flag is when customers start building themselves up as easy. I'm easy. Man, it's easy to work with me. I'm cool. I'm good. Everyone's like, cool, this person's going to be easy. If you're going to be easy, don't tell me, show me. Right? I mean, that's kind of a standard one.
Yeah,
And
I prefer, and this isn't just lip service. I really, really like when somebody's like, I'm picky.
Yeah.
I'm picky.
Yeah.
Because then I can say, great, what are you picky on? We're in your home. What looks good? What looks bad?
Yeah.
Because the sheetrock in here looks pretty darn good. I don't really see any issues. And if they're like, yeah, this looks good to me too, great. That's what I have you pretty much budgeted for, this level of sheetrock. Yeah. If they're getting up against the sheetrock, oh, there's a little divot and there's a little divot. Down here, I see some divots. Nail pops. Yeah. This one looks, this, I can kind of see a wave here. Okay. I need to get somebody more. I need to get a level 5 in here, not a level 4.
Yeah.
And I actually need to take this sheetrock off the wall because that's a 2x4. You have a bowed 2x4, so we need to replace that 2x4. Well, how much is that going to be? I don't know. I got to figure that out. Well, I don't know if it's worth that. Yeah. Well, we've identified that you're very picky on the sheetrock. So when we finish the job and there's still a wave there, are you going to be okay with that?
Yeah.
And it might get down to they're not willing to pay the price to get the product that they want, and you as the GC need to help them identify that blind spot.
Yeah.
Because if not, it's going to be your problem.
Yeah.
Like, no doubt, it will be your problem.
Well, if you were to say, Clark, I'm easy, I'd say, well, I need you to be a little tougher. Like, I need you to be harder because I need guidance of what you want and what you expect for the finished product. Because if we don't talk about that now, the product I give you is what I'm assuming you want. Mm-hmm. And that's what you're going to take if you're just going to be easy, right? And I don't want you to be easy. I want you to be hard. I want you to be a great client that is good feedback, and we're detailed together, and I'm your advocate here, but I need to know what and how I'm advocating for you. Mm-hmm. So speak up. Don't just sit back in the back seat. Sit in the passenger seat with me. Get involved and help navigate the way we're going. I think that's good. And the last one we have is a false green flag, is when clients start doing stuff to take over what a project manager should be doing. And sometimes this is gradual, and a lot of times this happens when that trust is being lost. The more trust that they lose in you, the more they get and grab what I always call, like, I want to sit in the driver's seat holding the steering wheel. I want my customer to sit in the passenger seat helping navigate. When your customer, especially up front, is setting themselves up to sit in the driver's seat, that is going to go wrong. Now, to someone unorganized, when a customer brings organization and their own Gantt chart and all that stuff, if I'm not organized, great, we'll use your organization. That is never going to work because now they're the project manager and they are in charge of how this job runs. So when a customer wants to procure their own materials, when they're that they can do that, but let me explain what that means, how that happens, why are you wanting to do that? You're trying to save $1,800 on this 6-figure job.
And that doesn't change the fact that I need to know what those materials are before we start. Because if you're getting something from Temu, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if the installation is going to be the same. We don't even know what the sizing. Like, you got to know what it is.
On the growth retreat, James did a client engagement, kind of a desk estimate meeting with one of our clients live, and showed kind of our quote. And probably 3 different guys mentioned when we were looking at it that you had a materials budget in the description for, let's say, $1,000. And then the line item was for $1,150, and they're like, "Aren't customers like, no, I'm not paying you $150 for this material? Like, that's why is this? You're marking up the materials? I'll just buy them myself."
Yeah.
And our answer to that every single time is like, listen, that's no. If you want to take that off there, that's no problem. That $150 is covering the taxes we're gonna have to pay. When I go buy that tile and bring it back, if there's a cracked tile, I now have to take a second trip to Home Depot and spend another 2 hours on this job. If my electrician opens up the box and it's broken, we handle it. We're going to take care of it. If you're buying the materials and I open up the tile box and there's a cracked tile, I'm going to call you and say, hey, you got to pay for my tile guy sitting here. I need you to run to Home Depot and buy a replacement tile for us because you're in charge of materials. I'm not getting paid to do this.
I don't have time, but I had to go to a random. I got to remember which Home Depot I got that at because it was out everywhere else. Hold on, I got to make a couple calls.
Yeah,
you're losing days.
Yeah.
On this,
I'm breaking even at a 15% markup on this because 7 to 8% is on taxes, and the other 7 to 8% is me running around procuring everything, right? And so
you just need to stop using that word.
I'm going to start saying gathering the material, procuring. But again, I'm going to show it to the customer. I'm going to be transparent with my pricing, and I'm going to say, if you want to buy your own materials, no problem. This is when the change orders are going to hit you hard because I've got to pay my electrician who's standing there waiting for that light fixture that you forgot to deliver.
Yeah.
And so who's paying them that day, right? You messed up. You've got to pay that change order for an electrician for a day. Yeah. So you start explaining that, and they're like, oh, no, you can buy the materials. That's fine, right? Yeah. And so that, again, that's an example of them taking over. It's not always it's not a terrible thing, but it's a flag for me of like, okay, you're going to get the materials. You care more about $100 extra in your pocket than me handling the whole thing. You're starting to take the wheel. What else is happening? They want to run a crew. Hey, I've got my cousin that does painting. I'm going to have him come in, and I'm going to make sure the painting gets done in the middle of your job. No, I don't want that. Like, let me handle your cousin. I'm going to mark it up, and let me make sure that I handle that communication. Them wanting to be in the driver's seat and not understanding I'm driving and you're my navigator. You're paying for the gas to get us there, but I've driven these roads before, and I will get us there safely.
And what would you do if you were driving somewhere, some destination, and your wife reaches over and grabs the wheel? Honey, I love you, but I'm going to bite you.
That's exactly what James says to customers, and it's perfect. So.
I do. And they love it. They think it's charming.
They love it. It's their favorite. So, again, that's kind of red flag, green flags that we like to navigate. It's understanding when there's a red flag popping up in your head, why is this a red flag? Is it because I am flying by the seat of my pants, I am not organized, I don't have processes, or is it a customer that is going to be a problem? A customer that is going to be long-term, I'm going to lose on this job. So understanding that and having your processes in place allow you to kind of weed out the customers you do and don't want to work with.
Let me try and boil it down a little
Please,
bit, just
absolutely.
because we've said flag a lot. Mm-hmm. We've thrown colors out there.
I've said procurement a lot.
You've said procurement wonderfully, so many times. At the end of the day, red flags, green flags, it's just information.
Yeah.
It's just information from your experience in this industry. And it doesn't mean that a green flag means this is great or a red flag means this is terrible, get in, get out. It means, okay, what are the questions that I need to ask because of this?
Yep.
New information. There's questions that I need to ask. There's things I need to lean into. And then once those things have been satisfied, you can make a decision. Are we a good fit? My dad's a contractor. I really just need someone to blah, blah, blah. Oh, boy. Okay, let's have some coverage. Your dad's not allowed on site. because you're going to take his opinion and then hold it against me, and it's just an opinion.
Yeah.
I could bring 3 other people in here, have 3 other opinions.
Yeah.
You know what they say about opinions. You know.
Yeah.
But it's just information. So it's not, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's more about what are you going to do with that information.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, one takeaway from this podcast would be if you're feeling like the hairs on your neck are starting to stand up, you're starting to get the feeling of like this client might be bad.
Or they might be a ghost.
Might be a werewolf. We don't know. But if you start getting like the red flags starting to happen in your head, lean into that customer and figure it out. A lot of times guys back off, and I'm going to put that customer on the shelf in case I need them. And then if these other customers don't work out, then I'm going to go back to them. That's only going to hurt your reputation. That's only going to make it worse. And you'll probably end up saying yes to that job anyways. And now all they felt is distancing from them and them hunting you down for answers. So lean into those red flag customers. Start navigating the questions. Lay out the process that is going to follow. Have a client engagement agreement. Come to us, we'll give you ours, but have a client engagement agreement that tells them exactly what the process, what I expect out of them, what they expect out of me, and go down the path to make sure that they're a reasonable person that we can work and be partners with in this renovation. At that point, if they're not, then they're not. It's okay. And say, hey, listen, we're booked up for the next 8 months, so I don't think we're going to be good for you. Right?
Yeah.
Get rid of them in a kind way. But it's okay to move on from a customer. If it's not going to work, that's okay. That's okay. But don't leave them hanging. Don't just kind of back burner them, but lean into those red flags.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time.